Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, president of the Future of Freedom Foundation. Welcome to Trump Watch. Well, let's start with Iran. It's a logical place to begin, given that the President of the United States and really the national security establishment, the Pentagon, the CIA, the NSA, the real most powerful part of the federal government, are mired down in that country. There seems to be no escape for them because they won't take the logical out and just say, hey, this has been a big mistake. We're pulling out all the troops. We're bringing them home. We're leaving the Middle East alone. We're leaving the rest of the world alone, which would be the ideal. As those of you that regularly watch Trump Watch or read my blog know that I've continually referred to Trump's Iran war as a tar baby. That he clearly wants out, but the tar baby won't let him go, and he's getting desperate. He's getting angry, as you can tell. Engaging in bombing attacks on the country that is severely impacting the civilian population. One of the funny aspects of this is how the mainstream press says, well, isn't that a war crime? Isn't that a war crime? Attacking civilian targets designed to target the civilian population with death and impoverishment and so forth. Isn't war supposed to be just between armies? I mean, this is so ridiculous. We all know that even if it is a war crime, nothing's going to happen. The mainstream press doesn't understand that. I mean, what do they think that Vice President Vance's attacks, or maybe it was Rubio's attacks, I'm not sure which one, on the International Criminal Court? Not that the U.S. is a member of the International Criminal Court, but they were bashing it, threatening to destroy it, because they don't want any indictments out of that. They don't want to be embarrassed by an indictment for war crimes, even if they're not subject to the jurisdiction. But they don't worry about it. Who's going to enforce the commission of a war crime against U.S. officials or against the Pentagon? Okay, that it requires enforcement when you're talking about war crimes. Who's going to enforce it? The Justice Department is going to seek indictments from a federal grand jury for attacking civilians or civilian targets in Iran? Come on, don't make me laugh. The Congress is going to impeach the president because he's engaged in supposed war crimes? Of course not. It's not going to happen. There's no possibility of this taking place, and even if it were to take place, let's say runaway federal grand jury decide to issue indictments, which of course would never happen, President Trump could simply issue pardons to everybody, including even himself. But here's the other thing, is that any target over there is automatically going to relate to military uses. You see, that's their rationale when they attack a bridge or they attack a power plant. They say, well, no, we're not attacking the civilian population. This has military uses. Like troops could cross the bridge there, or troops using electricity. And so the definition of military uses is expansive that they can bomb anything they want. It's sort of like the Interstate Commerce Clause. Okay, notice how that clause has been so expanded. They can encompass any economic activity in the country and subject it to federal control. I mean, you growing your own vegetables in your garden at home for consumption, that can be regulated because you're affecting interstate commerce. You're not going to the grocery store and buying things that have come across state lines, and therefore you're affecting interstate commerce. You're subject to federal control. It's the same thing with this expansive definition of military uses. Oh, yeah, those bridges and power plants can be used by troops. And so, in other words, they can target whatever they want and nothing's going to happen, despite references in the mainstream press of, oh, is this a war crime? Is this a war crime? And don't forget that the U.S. officials, I think unanimously, praised the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That's clear. When you're targeting women, little children, and everybody else, elderly people in these two cities with death, and that's what they were doing. These were civilian targets. And they're proud of that. They still say, "Oh, this helped shorten the war. This helped save the lives of American soldiers." Well, okay. Anything less than that, you think they're going to be reluctant to engage in attacks on power plants or some school that's got little girls in it? And don't forget also, that's what their sanctions are all about. Decades of sanctions against the people of Iran, targeting them with death by starvation or death by crashing in an airplane because they couldn't get parts to repair the plane, to maintain the plane in proper condition, or just severe impoverishment. That's what the sanctions are all about, to produce harm on the civilian population, including death. I mean, that's what they're doing in Cuba right now with that oil embargo, combined with their oil blockade, really, along with their economic embargo. They're now threatening other countries that if you give oil to Cuba, we're going to put sanctions on you or tariffs on you or whatever. They're targeting the civilian population, and they're happy about it. When they see the Cuban people suffering on the verge of starvation, and a lot of them dying of illnesses because they can't get medicines in hospitals, they're ecstatic about it. This proves the usefulness of their foreign policy. They don't give a darn about any of these people. These people are just pawns. They want to get their people in power, no matter who those people are. I mean, look at Venezuela. Here they are partnering with a socialist communist regime. I mean, it is so shocking that it boggles the mind. But what's even more shocking, or maybe equally shocking, is all the right-wingers who are either staying quiet about this or being supportive of it. I mean, for decades, right-wingers, including many right-wing libertarians, were condemning the Chavez regime and the Maduro regime as being a narco-terrorist regime, a socialist regime, a communist regime. They were calling for regime change, an invasion by U.S. forces, and oust this illegitimate regime. And it is an illegitimate regime. They lost that presidential election. Everybody knows it. They're still in power. Oh, yeah, they may have lost Maduro because of that raid that killed, I don't know, close to 100 innocent people as part of their old drug war racket. Let's face it, the drug war is not designed to keep Americans from taking their drugs. Americans want their drugs, they're going to get their drugs, which, of course, raises the obvious question. If this is such a great, harmonious society, how come everybody's tripping out on drugs, like escaping? But it's never not about drugs. It's just power. That's all it is power around the world and power over the American people. That's what it is how do you subject people to your control, the governmental control. And the drug war does a lot of that. The immigration controls do a lot of that. The surveillance, the assaults, the whole war on immigrants. I mean, you can see that it's all about power and control over the American people. Notice that there's very few protests now over ICE. Why? Because they killed protesters. And they've made it clear they will continue to kill protesters. Nothing happens to those killers. But that sends a message. It's no different from Tiananmen Square. Okay, you can say, well, yeah, but Tiananmen Square, they kill thousands, Jacob. All you got to do is kill a few. That sends a message out. A husband's going to tell his wife, we got kids here. You go out there in that protest and they kill you. I'm left here raising our children. It's not worth it to go out there. And that's how they suppress these protests and smash the protests as much as the Venezuelan regime does. In fact, one of the funniest things about the Venezuelan regime is they're having these talks now, about how to transform to a democratic system. They're meeting with the opposition. Such a joke. But they released, 40, 50 political prisoners, like people who had protested. But there's still like several hundred still in jail. I mean, all President Trump would have to do is give the order, release everybody. But you see, by keeping a few hundred in there, it sends a message. We can come after you again. So we'll let you go as long as you behave. Essentially, you're on parole. You get out there in the streets and protest, and we will come after you again. And the proof of that is we still got another, 100, 200, 300 people here in prison, and we have a right to do that. That's their mentality. This is the regime that the U.S. government is maintaining in power, cooperating with, really running the whole regime. The right wing is just silent about this partnering with a socialist communist regime. And in the meantime, they're over there, Trump saying, oh, communism is a threat, communism is a threat. And Rubio's State Department has issued this report about how the Reds are coming to get us. It's just the old Cold War racket, redux. I mean, it's really no different, except that it seems that people aren't getting as scared of the Reds as they were during the Cold War racket. During the Cold War racket, man, it was like, oh, the Reds are coming. Oh, Cuba's taken over by the Reds. Oh, my God. Well, now they're bringing it up again. Oh, Cuba's a communist regime. Oh, my gosh, they're going to invade Miami. They're on the verge of starvation. Where do they even get the troops to cross that water to get to Miami? Much less making it up, the interstate there to conquer Washington, D.C. Whole thing's just so ridiculous. But the right wing doesn't say anything, man. Oh, no, Jacob, the Reds are coming to get us. Well, then why are you cooperating with the Reds in Venezuela? Why are you staying quiet after decades of complained about Chavez and Maduro? It wasn't just them. They're not the only socialists. The new interim president, who was vice president, never elected under Maduro, who the U.S. has partnered with, she's a dyed-in-the-wool socialist communist. But, oh, yeah, no, she's not dangerous, And the right wing just stays silent. One of the leader of the dissidents, Maria Corina Machado, she sometimes criticizes this regime, which she should be. I mean, she should be condemning the regime, but she should be condemning the U.S. government for maintaining the regime, but she won't do that. Neither will her right-wing supporters. Neither will the right-wing libertarians or the right-wing conservatives that are standing with her. They all stay quiet because they don't want to offend the Republican president, President Trump. They want to stay on his good side. And so they'll give him her Nobel Prize, and they'll curtsy before him, and they'll bow before him. They'll criticize Delcy Rodriguez, but they won't criticize Trump for maintaining this narco-terrorist socialist communist regime into power. And I'm not saying that they ought to go in there and change regimes. I'm saying get out of there. You shouldn't have gone there in the first place. Leave Venezuela for Venezuelan people to resolve. Who elected Trump the world daddy? And then here's the other irony. Trump's now making nice with the North Korean dictator. Remember that? In the first term where he says, I vow I'm going to stop the nuclear program of North Korea. I'm going to disarm them and all this. And he ended up falling in love. Those are his terms. He fell in love with a North Korean communist dictator, a brutal communist dictator. I mean, you talk about smashing dissent. I mean, they smash all dissent, and you talk about a socialist communist regime. They're the model of a socialist communist regime, and Trump is over there making nice. Now, I think he's absolutely right about ending these or reducing these military exercises with South Korea. Very provocative, just in-your-face type thing. So he's right to be doing that. But I just find it ironic. I mean, you can end them without making nice with a North Korean communist, socialist, brutal dictator. You can just say, hey, we're going to end these exercises, or we're not going to do them this year, and so forth. You don't have to go over there and say, well, he's my friend or my buddy. And I mean, how is that reconcilable with this so-called threat that the Reds are coming to get us? I mean, North Korea has nuclear weapons, which returns us back to Venezuela, because Trump is saying, oh, I'm doing this to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon. Come on. I mean, this has all the earmarks of Saddam Hussein and his WMDs. I mean, the only thing missing is General Colin Powell's charts. Remember those beautiful charts where he went to Congress and says, we know the inspectors aren't doing their job. They're hapless. They're Inspector Clouseaus. They don't know what they're doing. The military knows what we're doing. We'll find those WMDs. Where are those WMDs? I mean, in fact, the big surprise to me is that when they were doing that raid on Venezuela to get Maduro, they, in the build-up to it, they didn't use a WMD card. Because a WMD card is a good card to use because, people will say, oh my gosh, WMDs, Jacob, mushroom clouds. And the president has information that we don't have. And he could have said that, they have information that Saddam Hussein's, he hid his WMDs in Venezuela, and that they have top secret information, like the same type of top secret information they supposedly have when they assassinate these people in these boats. Top secret classified information. We're not allowed to see it, which is, of course, just murder, supposedly for drug offenses, U.S. drug offenses, thousands of miles away. But I'm surprised they didn't pull the WMD card in Venezuela. But Trump's clearly pulling it over here. But wait a minute. I thought Trump said before this last embarking on a new war on Iran that he had bombed those nuclear facilities. Remember that, where he says, we've destroyed them, we've taken out. That was like 6 months before this current war. Well, if you've destroyed them, then how can there be any threat? And, never mind that all the intelligence agencies, what are their intelligence agencies for if we're not going to rely on their intelligence? They say there's no chance of them making a nuclear bomb and a nuclear missile. I mean, what are they going to do? It's buried under rubble. Everybody agrees with that. The nuclear material will take them years to make a nuclear bomb. But Trump's saying, oh, no, man, I got to stop him from making a nuclear bomb because that's his last out here. I mean, he is so desperate. He sees the midterms coming. He's getting panicky about that every day after day. He's now lashed out at Oman, saying, I'll go bomb them too. I mean, that's his resort every time. I'm going to go bomb them. I'm going to go bomb them. I'm going to go bomb them. And it's clear that the tar baby has got him, and it's got him angry and desperate. And he doesn't know how to get out of the tar baby when obviously there's a way out. And that is just, come home. Declare you made a mistake. You shouldn't have believed in Benjamin Netanyahu. You should have said, no, this is not America's job. I ran for office saying no more forever wars, and really led everybody to believe that we had seen the end of these foreign type escapades. But and that brings up another point. It's easy to blame Trump, but here's another factor that everybody's ignoring. And that is that it's not Trump making the final decisions on these wars. It's the national security establishment. And those of you who have been watching my videos and subscribing to our FFF Daily and reading my blog for many years know that I've cited a great book. I wish every American would read this book called National Security and Double Government by Michael Glennon. Glennon is a professor of law at Tufts University. He was a former counsel to the Foreign Relations Committee. And this book, its thesis is that the national security branch of the government is the most powerful branch. It's running the show. This is reflected by how the Supreme Court will not interfere with anything the national security establishment is involved in. Like these drug war assassinations on the high seas, I guarantee you, the Supreme Court will never touch that. If it was the DEA, they might, but not the military, not the Pentagon, okay? Which reflects Glennon's thesis that they're running the show. And so it's entirely possible that they've simply absorbed Trump, and Trump has said, well, okay, I'll make the best of this, and they let him have the leadership role where it looks like he's sending the orders out. But I think we have to understand the distinct possibility that it's the Pentagon and the CIA that's running the show. I mean, and the CIA's popping up. Usually they'll keep a low profile. They don't care about the veneer. This is what Glennon points out in his book, The Appearance. All they want to be running this federal government. They want the Congress to defer to them, which of course they do. the Supreme Court, of course, which they do. But they want the president to defer to them too. And every president understands this. This is how the structure now, when America got converted to a national security state over and above our founding system, which replaced our founding system of a limited government republic, they became the most powerful branch. They don't have to comply with the Constitution. This is why they invade countries without a declaration of war. They know the Supreme Court won't touch them on it. The killing of these people in boats there on the high seas. The Fifth Amendment says no taking of life without due process of law. Our ancestors would have never accepted this type of federal government had the Constitution called it into existence. But they know that no president's going to buck them. Not since they took care of Kennedy in '63. Kennedy bucked them. There's no question about that. Okay, Kennedy bucked him and said he achieved a breakthrough. He realized that the Cold War was a racket. That's what it was from the very beginning. He didn't realize that when he came into office. But with the Bay of Pigs fiasco, with the CIA lying to him, and then him vowing to tear the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter them to the winds, and he was going to destroy the CIA. I mean, that's what that means. When he said, I'm going to tear them into 1,000 pieces and scatter them to the winds. And then, and he said it is his peace speech at American University, June 10th, 1963, 5 months before they took care of him. They, in Dallas, he said, I'm going to move America in a new direction. It was a declaration of war. He was now at formal declared war against the national security establishment. The same way, 10 years later, the Chilean national security establishment went to war against the executive branch in Chile, against Salvador Allende, at the urging of U.S. national security state officials, who said that Allende was not only a threat to U.S. national security, thousands of miles away, but also a threat to Chilean national security. And that's how they felt about Kennedy. That once Kennedy says, we're going to declare an end to this racket, which of course was a very lucrative racket for the national security establishment and its ever-growing army of defense contractors. Look at the money they're making off this thing. I mean, Trump's now saying we're going to increase their budget from $1 trillion to 1.5 or 1.6 trillion. It's a very lucrative thing and a lucrative racket. And Kennedy saw that. But Kennedy also saw it was a very dangerous, deadly racket, especially involving the possibility of nuclear war, like in a conflict with Russia, where the Pentagon has used Ukraine as a proxy to degrade Russia, which, of course, increases the possibility of nuclear war. And that's what was going on there under the Kennedy regime. Kennedy realized that this racket was leading America to all-out nuclear war. And that's really what the Pentagon and the CIA wanted. Because they figured there's no possibility of peaceful coexistence with Russia and China and the communist world, that it was ultimately going to end up in a war. And they were even advocating Kennedy do a first strike nuclear attack before the Soviet Union could get enough nuclear weapons to retaliate against the U.S. And their rationale was, okay, we'll have maybe 40 million people left here, but we will have wiped out everybody over there. And they said, see, we won. And Kennedy walked out of that meeting and said to an aide, and we call ourselves a human race. So Kennedy was moving America in a totally different direction. He was bucking the U.S. national security establishment. There was war between them, and Kennedy lost the war. And so we end up going into Vietnam, where he was withdrawing from Vietnam. He had entered into a nuclear test ban treaty. On the day he was assassinated, he had an emissary secretly meeting, having lunch with Fidel Castro at the very moment he was assassinated. And so everything turns around with Johnson now in as president. He doesn't invade Cuba because of Kennedy's vow, and also the possibility, or almost certainty, of what Kennedy knew, that if they invaded Cuba, the Soviets would invade Berlin, where they had overwhelming power, military power, which of course would have meant a response and nuclear war. So Johnson says, okay, I'll give you your war in Vietnam. we all know how that turned out, where they sacrificed 56,000 American soldiers for nothing. Because the dominoes were going to fall. The Reds are coming to get us. Same old Cold War racket, but this one turned hot. And then after that, you get the war on terrorism, the Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, sanctions, embargoes, blockades. This is no way to live, and you end up being a system that not only is unfree. We live in this is what Americans don't want to realize. We live in a very oppressive society, especially when you look at all the surveillance and the controls and the war on immigrants. I mean, people fail to realize all of the destruction of liberty and privacy for us here at home, and it boggles the mind. And it's very expensive. I mean, we can see the affordability crisis, and people don't want to confront the fact, or at least a lot of people don't want to confront the fact. You've got high income taxes. Remember, our American ancestors lived without income taxation for more than 100 years. You got these tariffs; those are taxes. You've got the Federal Reserve with its inflationary policies. That's a tax. When they say, we want inflation at 2%, what they're talking about is prices rising 2%, that's a 2% tax. But when it's higher, and then this Iran war with the oil embargo and so forth, causing gas prices to rise, that's taking out of people's income. And so the government's responsible for all this. And here's something the leftists, the liberals, the progressives just blind them to. The whole welfare state, led by Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the whole panoply of welfare state programs, this is a narcotic for people, to keep people soft and placid and passive, and don't protest because we will eliminate your dole. This is what the liberals and the progressives don't realize. They'll declaim against all these things that Trump is doing with the Iran war and surveillance and civil liberties and so forth. But they'll say, but Jacob, the federal government has a good side. It's a benevolent side. That's what Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and welfare and subsidies and grants are all about, Jacob. It's a good government, Jacob. It's just got this little abusive side to it. It's ridiculous. It's the same government. And they use this welfare state as a narcotic to make people soft and placid and non-resistant to the ever-increasing oppressive system that is not only existing in different parts of the world, of death and destruction, but over us here at home. That's what it's all about. How do you control people here at home and make them subjects, like serfs, to the overwhelming power of this system? And when you look at the welfare state, the national security state with its omnipotent power of assassination, torture, indefinite detention, income tax, IRS, this is a very oppressive society that Americans call freedom. Thank God I'm an American, Jacob, because at least I know I'm free. Well, you perfectly embody Johann Goethe's dictum. None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. And that's really the plight of the American people. And so what do we do about all this? Well, all you can do is just keep speaking the truth about the situation, and maybe people will say, okay, now I understand what's going on. And they achieve a breakthrough, the same kind of breakthrough that Kennedy achieved, or that libertarians have achieved. And then once you achieve that breakthrough, then you aim for that critical mass of people to say, we want to get this nation back on the right track. We want a limited government republic. We have a right to get that back. It was the Cold War racket that justified the conversion without even the semblance of a constitutional amendment. We want to get rid of it. We want to get rid of the paper money system, the Federal Reserve system, the income tax system, the tariff system, and the whole welfare, warfare state, drug war, war on immigrants, the whole panoply of oppressive, tyrannical measures where the screws are just tightening and tightening and tightening on the American people. And we achieve that kind of critical mass in society, and all of a sudden, we're living in some very interesting, exciting times, because now you've got the trajectory moving away from this manifest statism that is suppressing the creativity and the well-being and the happiness and the joy of the American people who are living in this oppressive society, and even falsely believing that it's freedom, which creates its own psychoses. And now we're moving to a trajectory where you get rid of these systems, the drug war, the war on immigrants, the welfare state, the national security state, and you're talking about a free market society, a free society with just a limited government republic without all of these oppressive, tyrannical measures. And that's what we're aiming for here. We may not achieve it, but there's some redemption of and really enjoyment of fighting against it. I remember some founding father said, I forget who it was, that said, wherever there is liberty, that is my home. And I think it was Thomas Paine that said, wherever there is not liberty, that is my home. He wanted to be in the society where he was fighting for liberty, enjoyed it. And I enjoy it. Those of us here at FFF, we enjoy this fight for liberty. And we may succeed. So far, we're not doing a real good job, but you never know. You never know what lies around the corner, because you never know when the light bulb might go off in a critical mass of people that can bring a shift. And that critical mass can be less than a majority. All they need is a catalyst. And so that's what we're striving to do here at FFF. Thank you all for tuning in to this week's Trump Watch, and look forward to talking to you next week. And as always, thank you for your great support of FFF.